This is Countdown to the Grey Cup with Bill Kelly, delivered by Purolator on the Ticats Audio Network.
And welcome to another edition of Countdown to the Grey Cup. I'm your host, Bill Kelly, brought to you by Purolator. We are getting ever closer to, of course, the Grey Cup, once again in the Hammer. And we promised you on a previous show that we were going to talk to you about some of the entertainment. And they did a hell of a job of keeping this stuff all secret. And I don't know how they did it. But joining us to talk about this is our good friend, Natalie Sexton. Natalie, of course, is a 2023 Grey Cup Festival ambassador, also a digital host. And by the way, for you fans that go to the games, of course, at Tim Horton Field, you'll notice that Natalie is probably the busiest person in the stadium on game day. I mean, and I'm including the players in that. I mean, you're all over the place doing everything. So I'm glad you made some time for us on the program today.
Of course.
What an announcement. I mean, Matt Afanack and you guys were teasing us about this, and we had no idea about the magnitude of the superstar who's going to come here.
Is this not so exciting? I have to tell you, when I found out, I had like complete, not only fangirl moment, but it was like almost tears. I squealed. This is so exciting for the city. And I mean, to kick off this, music festival is just like, this is unbelievable. This Built in the Hammer Grey Cup Music Festival is going to be, it's insane. I'm so excited.
There was so much speculation about who it might be, and will it be Shania again? And by the way, she hasn't been ruled out because there's a lot more entertainment still to be announced. But Carrie Underwood, and I know you're a fan, and I'm a fan.
Yes.
Just about everybody I've talked to said, when do we get tickets? How can we get tickets?
Right.
I mean, this is somebody who has reigned supreme in country music. I mean, you look at the awards that she's won, Natalie. It just seemed as if about the last 8 or 10 years, all the other country stars just show up at the awards to watch her receive them. I mean, because she just dominated, didn't she?
She really did, and still does. I mean,
Yeah.
I follow her as well on social media, and she's just constantly performing. She was just in Vegas, and she is the ultimate entertainer. Not only is she an incredible singer, but she's an amazing performer. Like, the show itself is something for everybody. Like, even somebody who, I dare say, someone who maybe isn't into country music or that type of thing. Like, I do feel like this is a show that everybody will want to be at. Just the vibe alone. I mean, and it's Carrie Underwood. Like, who doesn't want to go and see Carrie Underwood? This is huge for the city too. What a way to kick it off.
But the whole thing, because I know you love music as I do, country music is mainstream now. I mean, it's not just, there's those guys, they got the steel guitar. That's still there, of course.
Sure.
But it's mainstream. I mean, back in my radio days, my boss in Toronto said, look, it's the new rock and roll. I mean, everybody's into it. Don't forget the first concert we ever did at Tim Horton Field was Keith Urban and Darius Rucker. That was a heck of a show. Country's big in Hamilton, but I mean, there's nobody bigger than Carrie Underwood, as you say, with her residency in Las Vegas, the number of awards that she's won. This is going to be a heck of a show.
I mean, it sort of feels a little bit surreal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the amount of messages that I have received about it, and I think like the feedback from the community, I think everybody was really surprised. And like you said, there was lots of speculation. I've been stopped in like grocery stores and places around the city. Like,
Come on, Natalie, who is it? Come on, you can tell us.
Come on. They're like, if I just say a name, just nod yes or no. So it's been, the speculation. But I think people are actually really genuinely surprised, and in such a great way, because she is really a world renowned superstar. And exactly like you said, country music really is such a mainstream, something for everybody kind of vibe. It certainly isn't just sort of like one certain genre anymore. I think it touches everybody. I mean, I've been practicing my Before He Cheats. That's my go-to karaoke song. So I've been singing that one full stop, when I'm getting ready for work in the morning. I'm not going to lie, driving to work this morning as well, I had Carrie on.
First of all, it's because we know her. I mean, we saw her ascension into the business, when she won the competition.
Sure.
Okay, what are you going to do for us now? I mean, that's the way the music business is. But it was like a storybook story. She met Mike Fisher, who was playing for the Ottawa Senators at the time.
Right.
They fell in love. They got married. Mike asked for a trade down to Nashville so they could be closer together. And you figure, this is the classic living happily ever after, isn't it?
It really is. And I think there is something about her that so many people relate to and are really inspired by her, because exactly like you said, she was this young person trying out for a competition, and actually all of us sort of being able to see that and see her grow and really become this self-made superstar, really based on just pure talent and hard work. Congratulations to her. She's an inspiration to all of us and a heck of a performer too.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And as
Oh,
good
same
as that
here.
is, and it is great, uh, this is only the first of a number of announcements that are coming up. I mean, there's a lot more to come, isn't there?
Oh, yes, Bill, there's lots to come. You're not going to get any secrets out of me though, okay?
Come on, it's just you and me talking here. Come on.
No, there's so many exciting things to look forward to, and I think that's what makes this, even more exciting. Like that, this is our first announcement, right? To
Yeah.
think like Carrie Underwood is our first announcement here. So yeah, just stay tuned. You definitely, like you mentioned, I am the digital host as well for the Grey Cup
Hmm.
Festival page. So you definitely want to follow us on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, and really stay up to date with everything that is going on. And we will keep you guys posted. I promise.
Now, the process in past years at other Grey Cups in other cities is usually, yeah, there's entertainment going around through the course of the week, but there's the headliner for the halftime show.
Right.
And that gets announced, and people act accordingly. I mean, I've seen Shania, we've seen so many other great acts, Justin Bieber a few years
Right.
ago at the halftime show. When everybody heard this, the first reaction I heard from most people was, "She's doing the halftime show." I said, "No, no, no, no,
Right.
no. This isn't the halftime show.
Right.
This is the Friday before the Grey Cup. It's going to be at First Ontario Centre at the arena." And
Right.
for those of people in the Hamilton area that were thinking all those last few months when they said, "Well, when are they going to start the reconstruction on that?" They said, "No, no, no. We have plans for this on Grey Cup week." Well, now we know at least what part of that plan is, don't we?
Right, right. We sure do. I know, and I mean, the plans and the way things are coming together. It's just going to be an unreal time in the city. I mean, like nothing we've really ever seen before. James Street North. There's so many things that are going to be happening down there. I've been sharing a little bit again via social media too.
Hmm.
So lots of events taking place there, as well as in Niagara Falls too, which is going to be really cool. And having those shuttles going back and forth, I think will be phenomenal. But yeah, it'll be just days and days of entertainment, for everybody. The nice thing too is like there's something for everybody and for all ages as well.
And this, of course, is going to be the Friday night at First Ontario Centre. There's
Right.
another show Saturday that has yet to be announced. And, of course, we don't even know who's going to do the halftime show.
I know.
Still coming down the pike. And, as you mentioned, the CFL Awards ceremony is going to be at Fallsview Casino this year. That's, I thought, a masterstroke by everybody on the committee that have put this whole thing together. And we don't even know who's going to play that. There is going to be entertainment after the show.
I
And
know.
so, I mean,
I don't even know.
these guys, Natalie, have set the bar. I mean, whoever gets the Grey Cup in future years is going to say, "How are we ever going to top Hamilton?" Well, you're not. I can tell you right now, but you can try. But the excitement level here is just phenomenal, and it's just rising with each passing day.
You're right. It's I think we really have set the bar, and I've been fortunate enough to be a part of the last two Grey Cups that have happened. When we were here in 2021 with
Hmm.
that post COVID kind of COVID times, definitely was a different kind of Grey Cup vibe, but still like I was so excited to host that. And to sort of see people again. And that was definitely a fun time in the city. And then last year I was in Regina and hosting some of the stuff for the Ticats there. I did some things with the CFL and they had a great party there. But this here now, this is a whole another vibe, like just the energy of it, what we're doing, what the city is doing. I think exactly like you said, Bill, it's next level. Like we've raised the bar, and that's just a taste of it that we're giving right now. This is the first big announcement, right?
Oh, and as I say, building and building, and I'm told there's going to be another one in the next couple of days. So follow Natalie's advice and keep checking the website. You can go to greatcupfestival.ca or follow Natalie on social. I mean, you'll
Please
get it when
do.
they get it, and
You
you'll
got it.
be passing it on ASAP. It's an exciting time. I know you attended the Tiger Town Council meeting the other day. Which is the business advisory group for the football team. And Rebecca Wisens, who was chairing the meeting, just said, you've been to the Grey Cup a couple of years ago. You ain't seen nothing yet. And that's pretty much going to be the theme for the rest of these announcements, isn't it?
It really is. It's sort of next level. I think that we have I would say like outdone ourselves. I was gonna say I don't want to brag, but we should brag.
Oh,
Let's
brag,
brag.
please.
Let's brag away,
Yeah.
right? And I mean all of the people behind the scenes. There's so many endless hours. And we have such an amazing team of people, of creative people, and they're just so hardworking. And what they have envisioned to bring to this city, it's magic. It really is. It gives me chills. I just got chills.
Well, put on a heavier coat because you're going to get more chills in the next couple of weeks as we get more announcements. I know how busy you are, Natalie. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. We'll see you at the ballpark again. Of course, we've got a football game coming up in the next little while, and lots more announcements, too. All the best, and I know we'll talk more about some of the other announcements down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Bill.
Take care. Natalie Sexton, of course, the Grey Cup Festival ambassador. And, of course, you can hear her on the TiCat Network and follow her on social, too, because she'll keep you up to speed on what's going on around there. By the way, speaking of which, if you want to keep tabs on what we're doing here on the road to the Grey Cup, just look for the Audio Network on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. On the show is a guy who's got his name on the Grey Cup a couple of times, as a matter of fact, and he's got a lot of experience from his past time as a Grey Cup contender, a Grey Cup winner, and, well, sadly, he's seen the peaks and valleys, too. He's got a great story, and he's going to join us right after this as we continue Countdown to the Grey Cup. I'm Bill Kelly.
You have to be so happy for Paul Osbaldiston, a young man who came into this stadium where he started his CFL career, emerges as the Canadian player of the game. 6 field goals, equaling a Grey Cup record.
Osbaldiston from 46 yards out. Paul Osbaldiston puts 3 more on the board, and the Ticats are out of the gate quickly in this 87th Grey Cup.
This is Countdown to the Grey Cup. I'm your host, Bill Kelly, of course, brought to you by Purolator. One of the fun things about doing this show, of course, is talking with some of the all-time greats as we start gearing up for the Grey Cup here in Hamilton once again. And we have one of the all-time greats. I know that's a cliche that gets overused an awful lot of the time, but it's very appropriate for our next guest. He holds a boatload of records as a Hamilton Tiger Cat and a few as a Grey Cup champion as well. It's great and a real pleasure to welcome to the program Paul Osbaldiston. Ozzy, thank you so much for the time. It's good to talk with you again.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I was going to say, when you're talking about all-time greats, I was wondering if there was a bunch of guys behind me or something.
Well, in past weeks, I've had a couple of your old buddies from teams gone by. Danny Mack, of course, was there. I was talking with Leo Esmonds just the other day and Jason Riley. We were at a meeting downtown Hamilton at the stadium, and, of course, your name came up more than a few times about some of those Grey Cups past. And you've been in a few of them. You've appeared in 4 Grey Cups. Won a couple of them in a big way. And I want to maybe start off as we're talking about that first Grey Cup with you as a Tiger Cat. That was 1986. And it was, as we've talked about on the show, a roller coaster year. I mean, the team wasn't playing that well, kind of not unlike what the team is doing this year. It's kind of trying to find themselves. And it seemed to turn them around. John Salavatis, one of the coaches at the time, said, it just seemed after that game in Saskatchewan, we kind of became a team. And a lot of guys point to you coming onto that team. You didn't start the season with the Tiger Cats. Of course, Bernie Ruoff was the kicker, I guess, coming out of camp. But you came on later, and you were one of the key elements in that team, finding their rhythm, I guess, and going all the way to the Grey Cup. What was it like to be on that team and to kind of feel this team getting better with each game and finding each other, their strengths and their weaknesses and becoming a team?
Well, it was an incredible journey. For me, it was, I thought this was the way it was supposed to be. You show up, you win a bunch of games, you go to the Grey Cup and you win. I was thinking, hey, this is going to be great every year if we keep doing this. I didn't realize it'd be so long before I was lucky enough to win another, but it was a very, very special team, and the 2 years before that they had been to the Grey Cup, and Al Bruno coach teams seemed to have kind of a similar story, a slower start, a lot of veterans on the team. And as the season gets rolling, the offense caught up to the incredibly great defense that we had in Hamilton. And once the offense clicked and started scoring some points of their own, we became somewhat unstoppable, and I look back to that game and being 15-point underdogs, and the Eskimos with their 3 quarterbacks of Matt Dunnigan, Tracy Ham, and Damon Allen on the roster, and how they were 16-2 that season. Not very many people gave us a chance, but I think what they failed to recognize was exactly how outstanding our defense was. Our front four was incredible. Our linebackers were deep. Our DBs were more than solid and had scored a whole boatload of points going down those last 9 games. So it was just a special time. I was too young to truly appreciate it. But one of the best feelings I had at the end of the game was looking around the locker room and seeing these guys that have played for such a long time and never won a Grey Cup, and exactly how thrilled they were. To me, it was just, still a dream. I was still living a dream as a rookie. And to these guys, they had spent their entire, careers, and a lot of them very long careers, trying to get to that pinnacle. So to be a part of that and help out a little bit was just, that was the best feeling in the world.
I want back up just a bit. The game itself is amazing for a whole lot of reasons. You touched on a couple of them. But to get there, as I say, you had a really good second half of the season. You played Edmonton twice, by the way, in the second half and lost both games. So that's what I think one of the contributing factors when people say, look, these guys don't have a chance. But in the Eastern Final, people to forget, you finished in second place because it was kind of a roller coaster start. The Argos were in first place. And that was the last year of what they call the two-game total point to qualify. There was one game in Hamilton between you and the Argos, and then the second game was in Toronto, of course, at CNE Stadium. They added up the scores and whoever won. You essentially got your butts kicked in that first game right here in your home ballpark. And a lot of people said, well, the bubbles burst. That's it. The Argos are just that much better. What was it like that week between games when you had to go into Toronto down, was it 18, 19 points, something like that?
Yeah, we were down 17 after the
17.
first game and 26 after the first quarter. So they really kicked our butts the first 5 quarters. And, in between games, there was kind of a reserved confidence, I guess is the best way to describe it. We knew we weren't out of it. We knew we could play with that football team and we could beat them. So 17 points to us was something that we felt like we could do, but after the first quarter, 26 points down, it was almost described as the miraculous took over. And everything went our way and nothing went their way. And Mike Kerrigan at that time got smoking hot, set records in the playoffs for passes completed that game. And all of a sudden, our offense couldn't be stopped and Toronto couldn't score a single point. So everything fell into place for us those last 3 quarters. And it slowly built over time a confidence that, we can do this. We can make up these 26 points. We'll get there. And we did. And I think that was a big part of, the success we had the next week against Edmonton, was the fact that we had come off such an incredible high, such a confidence building win, that we felt at that time that it didn't matter who we played, that we were going to win the ball game.
But as a rookie kicker, I mean, you had to play a large part in that. I mean, this was like a comeback for all times in that game at CNE Stadium. There's no room for error here. I mean, every time you're out there, it's you got to make it go. Do you feel that extra pressure? Is it just a game? I mean, are you in the zone when you're kicking?
Well, I think you can kind of describe it 2 ways as a rookie. You're not smart enough to understand the pressure, I guess. But naturally, watching the game my whole life, always dreaming of playing in the Canadian Football League, to be in that situation, absolutely you felt it. You weren't human if you didn't, but again, it was something that just kind of, I'll draw similarities between the 86 team and the 99 team, and both organizations, both players, but the coaching staff, it was very similar. It was a situation of, I know my role. I know what my role is. My role isn't always to be outstanding and, have my name flashed on the TV screen. It's to do whatever I have to do for the team to win, for the guy next to me to be successful. Do I go unnoticed, and that's better for the team and the game than to go noticed and lose the football game. So both clubs were very similar, though we had a bunch of players that would rather go unnoticed and win the whole thing than be an all-star and have a great season individually and stand out in a game, but not really worry about what the outcome was. So it was, the two teams were very similar, extremely talented defenses, very deep defenses, great front lines, great linebackers, great DBs. and an offense that was steady. And that's all it needed with our defense.
But not without adversity. I mean, so you win that, you beat the Argos, you go into the Grey Cup. It was in Vancouver that year, so you're going to play the mighty Edmonton Eskimos. Les Brown's not going to play for you. I mean, he badly broke his finger, and it looked awful. So he's not going to start for you. So you're going to have to make some adjustments. You had some injuries on the offensive line, which obviously was a major factor in your kicking game too. A couple of guys had to shift around, some guys playing out of position. So there's that going on, and John Salavatis has got that headache to deal with. And then you get into the game, and your running back Walter Bender gets hurt early in the game. And Dan Huckluck steps up, and that seemed to be the story of that whole team was next man up. Okay, this guy can't finish, get in there and do the job, and whoever had to fill that gap did the job. I mean, that including in that game, of course, David Sauvé had missed how many games with an injury. He, I guess, talked Coach Bruno into putting him in that game, and he was outstanding. I mean, everybody just seemed to play at the maximum level.
Yeah, John Salavanis, first of all, was very good at dealing with headaches. He was an incredibly smart coach. He's one of the best I've ever seen. And you're right. It was, back in those days, you have to remember we had a 37-man roster. So you take off the 3 quarterbacks, a kicker, punter, you're already down into that 33 range, 12 star. You've basically got 8 substitutes for offense and defense. So all 8 of those guys are playing pretty well every special team. You've got 4 starters on special teams. Very first game I played for Hamilton, Miles Gurrell at 6'8", let's be polite and call it 320 pounds, was covering kickoffs. And I'll never forget, I hit my first kickoff out of bounds in Toronto, and I'd only gotten there on Thursday. And I saw this mammoth of a man kind of run by me on the way back and scowling at me. So I kicked off and we covered the kick. And then the next time we scored, I kicked off out of bounds. And I don't think Miles made it more than 7 yards down the field before he turned and made a beeline to me and grabbed me by the shirt and lifted me pretty well straight up in the air and said, "Do you know how hard it is for a big man like me to run all the way down that field for absolutely no reason?" So I kicked the ball straight down the field, I think, the rest of the year for Hamilton. But yeah, you know what? It was the same type of characters. We had a lot of fun off the field. We're successful off the field and on the field, but we spent a lot of time off the field together. We always did things away from the locker room. And that was because we wanted to be with each other. We wanted to share in our lives and our families and having a good time together, building camaraderie. And, it's almost like you show me every championship team in the history of sports, and it's the team that has the most nicknames, and it's because you're spending time away doing some fun things, sometimes some foolish things, sometimes some great things in the community. And you'll end up with 5 or 6 players that have multiple nicknames. So that was always my key to success was if you spend enough time off the field together, it's because you want to be with your teammates. And that shows a great character and a great assembly of players, which was always something that is easier said than done. If you had the ability to build a locker room or know the chemistry about it, or be able to say, these 40 players will fit in and have a great locker room, you'd be a rich and wealthy man.
Yeah.
There's no recipe to it. There's no logic to it. It just happens. And when it happens to winning teams.
You talked about the coaching staffs, and let's talk about that a little bit, Oz, because that's going to be a key part of any success of any football team. Al Bruno in '86, of course, Al, the coach's guy. I mean, the players loved him, and they go to 1999. Well, it was '98, but also to '99, the winning year. And you've got Ron Lancaster, and the description I've heard from all your teammates from both those teams, they were a player's coach. They didn't treat you like kids. They didn't jump over you and say, "What time did you get to bed last night?" They treated you like adults, and that seemed to click with your teams.
It did. I don't know if it's a Hamilton thing or not, but neither one of those coaches has ever checked rooms. Their philosophy was, if you're stupid enough to go out the night before a game and jeopardize your career and your teammates' career and the chance at a win, then your teammates are going to take care of you. And that was the big thing about both those coaches. What they let us handle the locker room. And they knew that if there was people inside the locker room that weren't pulling their weight or they were causing issues, that we would, first of all, we would deal with it. If not, we would bring it to their attention and they would deal with it. So Coach Lancaster never liked to come back in the locker room, and Coach Bruno wasn't really visible back there either. They felt that that was our job and not theirs. And, in 86, I was a youngster, so I was probably one of those guys that the veterans were controlling. But in 99, I was part of that crew that the leadership crew that would sit down a lot or talk a lot about certain players. And a lot of the times, if we saw someone that needed a little nudge in the right direction, whether it was encouragement or discipline, we would go address it with them. We would say, okay, who's going to go talk to this guy? And who's the best person to go talk to this guy, or the best couple of guys to go talk to this guy? And that's how we would handle things. And I think that was part of the magic of the locker room and the fact of the camaraderie that I was talking about. How you would rather be, in the locker room than anywhere else. The locker room was a haven, no matter what was going on in your life, good, bad, ugly. The minute you walked in the locker room, you left everything outside. And you became a teammate and a football player. And it was a safe place to be. It was a place where you could always get help from your friends, support from your teammates. It was a wonderful feeling. And, a lot of us would show up a couple of hours before we had to be there. And sometimes we'd stay a couple of hours after, and sometimes into the wee mornings after with both teams. And that's something we also enjoyed or had in common between 86 and 99 as well, is that, we weren't afraid to go out and, let off some steam and have a good time and have even more stories to look back on and build more camaraderie. So the teams were very similar, like you said, in so many ways.
How do you deal with pressure as an individual, as a rookie, certainly back in 86, but as your career progressed? I've seen some people kind of comparing kickers in football to goalies in hockey. It's a different mindset. You're certainly part of the team and a big part of that team, but it's kind of different. Trying to stay in the game, trying to stay focused. You've got a different set of tools than other people, and different goals than the other people do too. How can you stay focused, and how do you get ready for that one time when you say, okay, Ozzy, you're up, let's go?
Yeah, I think you're right. Hockey goalies and kickers are one of the few positions in sports where there's only one on the ice. There's only one guy that does what you do. And because of that, sometimes it's misunderstood. You can be called crazy or flaky or whatever. But, I know in the Canadian Football League, guys like Lou Pasaglia were admired, Don Sweet, players like that. They were regular teammates. And even though you were viewed in the public or sometimes by other football players, to be a certain way, and you're not a football player, you're just this or you're just that. Guys like Louie and Don and, so many others, Dave Cutler was another guy that was part of the football team. And for lots of different reasons, because they were stand-up individuals, they were intelligent, they had courage, they had skill, and I think that's something that has started to change in the game or has changed over the years. So it's good to see that, first of all. But I think dealing with the pressure was always something that I wanted. I always used to say, give me 18 game-winning field goals a year. I'll take every game on my shoulders because I believe that I'll make all 18 of those, and so do my teammates. And I think if you went around in the locker room and said, okay, here's a situation, we're going to play 18 games this year. Every game's going to come down to a last-second field goal, and Ozzy's got to kick it. Are you okay with that? And they would say, probably like every football player would say, well, I'd rather be up by 50 points, but you know what? I'll take that bet. You bet I will. And that's something I was very proud of. And the fact that the majority of my career, I didn't hit them all, but I hit the majority of game-winning field goals. It was just something that I would go onto the field and just feel and say that, what, I always make these. I always have, I always will. And I wanted to be in that situation. I wasn't scared of it. I loved it. I wanted it every single game.
Well, two in particular stand out for me, and I think they were Eastern Finals. One was against the Ottawa Rough Riders at Iverwin, and a couple of years after that against the Alouettes, and both your kick won the game for them in both instances. As a matter of fact, the players, I think, just about smothered you after you in the celebration. After that, there was some talk about, hey, Ozzy got hurt during the big celebration because everybody piled on you. But the pressure, I mean, you've got 30,000 people staring at you. The players are all on the sideline. What are you thinking? What are you looking? Are you just looking at the goalpost? Are you envisioning that what's going on in your head?
Well, I always treated it differently. For so many years, it was always talked about, just relax. It's just another kick. It's just another kick. Well, no, it's not. It's not a 30-yard field goal in the first quarter. It's not. You either go home as a winner or you go home as a loser. And at playoff time, you either make more money for everybody or you lose money for everybody. So it wasn't just another kick. In no way, shape, or form was it ever to me just another kick. And I think because of that, it heightened my concentration. For me, everything kind of went into a simplified process of, concentrate on these few things that you need to do to make a field goal. You always make these, you always have, let's get it done, and it's one of those surreal moments in sports where, it does one of two things. And sometimes whether you're successful or you fail, it works both ways. You either feel like it happens in slow motion or it's kind of gone before you know what happened. For me, it was always kind of in a slow motion. I always slowed everything down, my thought process, everything, my swing. Like I said, I had a handful of things that I needed to concentrate on. And I tuned everything out. Like it was like everything around me was a fog and a haze. All I ever saw was, my holder and the football and the ball going through. That's all I ever pictured, all I ever concentrated on. And believe me, to me, it was not just another kick.
Weather happens. This is Canadian football, after all, and you've kicked in some wonderfully beautiful weather, and you've kicked in some snowstorms, some rainstorms, some windstorms. Is there any dialogue between you and the coach, like, Hodge, where do we have to get to? Can you make it? Depending on the weather conditions. Because you are famous right around the league as the only guy who could ever tame the mighty west wind at Iverwin Stadium. I mean, you knew how to play that. Like you were trying to hit a 9-iron shot. You played the wind a lot of the time, so it was almost a science for you.
Yeah, I think after my first couple of years, I really came to the conclusion that if you don't learn how to deal with this, you're not going to be successful, or you're not going to be successful at the level you want to be. So at that point, what I used to do, and I did it all the way to the end of my career, is if I was going to kick 50 field goals, 40 of them would be into the wind. If I was going to kick 60 punts in a day, 50 of them would be into the wind. And I just spent, my entire off season there. That's where I'd train. That's where I'd kick, because I wanted to learn as much as I could about, when the wind was blowing, how it was blowing, gusts, change of directions, patterns. There was always a 7-step, or for the most part, there was a 7-step gust pattern at Iverwin, no matter where the wind was coming from. Kicking into the west wind was easier than kicking into the wind when it came off the lake, from the horseshoe side at Iverwin. The ball would be affected a lot more when the wind came that way at the same speed as it would from the west. So there was all kinds of things I learned over the years about how to deal with that. And quickly you learn that it's not a curse. It's not something that you can't handle. You just accept it. You just accept the fact that the wind is coming this way. I can kick the ball only so far. And the good coaches in the Canadian Football League understand two things. I mean, one is clock management, and two is the weather and how to handle the flow of the game when you're going into a wind as opposed to with it. What end to take with the coin tosses, whether you defer or take the football, that type of a thing. So I was blessed to have guys like Al Bruno and John Gregory and and Don Sutherland, and of course Ron Lancaster, who all knew how important that was. And we had quarterbacks that knew how important that was. When we were going into a heavy wind sometimes, if Danny was on the ground, or we'd coach the running backs to take an extra 3-4 seconds to get off the ground. Linemen falling on people. Well, take a break. You don't want to get up anyway. You weigh 400 pounds. Just chill out for a while. Make the clock run. And it made a big difference. Sometimes it would make a difference of 2 or 3 punts into the wind during a game, as opposed to having it with the wind. So I was blessed to have some incredibly intelligent coaches and teammates that understood that about the Canadian football game and how different it can be, and especially at places, the old ballparks. They're not the same now, but places like Ottawa and CNE Stadium and Hamilton and the old Winnipeg Stadium and Taylor Field, places like that where there was no protection from the wind. And sometimes because of the stands, it almost felt like there was certain parts of the field where you could kick into the wind and with the wind going in the same direction. They all had their little nuances. They all had their little differences, and you had to play there to understand them and learn them. And you look at the guys that got really good, especially in Saskatchewan, Calgary, CNE Stadium. These were guys that played for a while, understood it, accepted it, and didn't think that they were going to drive a field goal 47 yards into a 45K wind at Iverwin Stadium. So I would discuss with the coaches before games, this is my range this way, this is my range that way.
Okay.
At Iverwin, it was better to be on certain hash marks, because then you're kicking with less of a crosswind. So when we got the ball in that 98 Eastern final, Lancaster and McManus came to me and I said, get me to 50-yard line or better, but keep the ball on the right hash no matter what you do. Right? So things like that go a long way. It was a much easier kick from the right hash than it would have been from the left hash.
It's an incredible history, an incredible story. And of course, we start thinking of these when we get closer and closer to Grey Cup. 2,856 career points, still holds the record for most field goals in a game, 8, tied with Dave Ridgway and Mark McLaughlin, 2 of the guys that were at the same time as you, playing for Calgary and for Saskatchewan. Ozzy, it's always great to catch up with you. This is Tiger Cat time. This is black and gold in everybody's veins this time of year. And invariably, when we start talking about some of the greatest Ticats of all time, as I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, your name is right there. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It was great to catch up.
Well, those are kind words. Thank you very much.
Take care. Paul Osbaldiston, all-time great Tiger Cat, place kicker and punter too. And that's it for this edition of Countdown to the Grey Cup. We'll do this again in just a couple of days. We are brought to you by Purolator. And of course, you can listen to us and watch us on the Tiger Cat Audio Network. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget, Grey Cup coming up in Hamilton, in the Hammer. A lot of great announcements. Go to the webpage at greycupfestival.ca to get all the latest. Until next time, I'm Bill Kelly. Thanks for watching.